Alright, welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. I am not as tired as I would think I would be, if I'm being completely honest. It's almost 9 o'clock at night on a Friday. Went to the movies, as you can probably expect. It feels like, and this is the thing, is all through the summer, and it threw my entire, life off to an extent. All through the summer at work, we got off early on Fridays. We got off at 2:30. So on Fridays, I would go to the movies at 3, because I would just go right from work at 3 o'clock. And now here we are back. I'm getting out of the theaters. It's night, night. So here we are. It is. I just saw The Woman King. That's the name of the movie I just saw. And I think there are two things I really want to address with this movie. The movie's fantastic. I really don't have anything bad to say about the movie. Viola Davis is great. Lashana Lynch is great. The other girl whose name I don't remember is great. John Boyega is great. Costume and production design are all fantastic. It's a great movie all around. And the narrative works. And it doesn't shy away from the history of the Dahomey people and all of that, which is what I want to address. Okay? It's so weird the way things are now, where we talk about a movie like this, which is ostensibly historical fiction, because Viola Davis' character never existed. The lead girl never existed either. John Boyega is based on a real person, and everyone's based on real people. But because for the sake of creating a narrative, they had to shift the timeline a little bit to make things line up properly. Because it's the events of this movie took place over 70 years, so it's things are shifted to fit better into a 2-hour script, and it's just easier to just compress time in that format than it is to do a time lapse with multiple actors and all that nonsense. So looking at all of that leading into this movie, I heard a lot of griping about the movie's gonna be historically inaccurate, and it's well, okay, historical accuracy is something that I've only ever seen brought up in regards to movies that feature predominantly non-white leads. It's only ever brought up in that situation, and because it's I understand that it is completely not the same thing. Pirates of the Caribbean did not in any way attempt to act like it was historical fiction that honed closer to reality, because there are ghosts, there are, curses, and, all of that kind of stuff. And also, it was a different time when that movie came out. But as evidenced by the sequels, which did feature some real people, even if, we're dramatizing them to make them paranormal or whatever, people didn't criticize those movies for historical inaccuracies. And historical inaccuracy criticism really only comes, and keep in mind too, it's historical inaccuracy criticism, people brought that up when it was announced that they were working on a female-led Pirates of the Caribbean movie with Karen Gillan. When we talk about historical inaccuracy, we talk about, people of color being put into roles that we haven't seen them in traditionally in pop culture. And it's well, that's not realistic. It's well, number one, you're incorrect. Number two, it's artistic license. And when we watch movies about, Elvis that whitewash his relationship with Priscilla Presley, and that movie's acclaimed, there were no criticisms about that movie being historically inaccurate. People didn't watch Elvis and go, now wait a minute, because the movie worked. We only ever see these criticisms in advance of movies that feature predominantly non-white leads. Like this one, all I heard, and if you go to the Wikipedia page, because I did this after the movie, I went to the Wikipedia page to see, what I could learn about this. I wanted to see how close to reality did it hone, because I don't know anything about African history. I'm going to be completely honest. I mean, it's kind of a blind spot for a lot of people who went through schooling in America, because the way schooling is in America and the way history is taught is meant to make America look as good as possible, and that's not even just an American thing, that is a international thing. Whatever country you live in, your history will be skewed to make your country look the best. That is how history works when it's taught in schools in state-funded education. It is entirely patriotism propaganda. And in American history, we do not learn about what was going on in Africa for obvious reasons, because it's, the history of your country. But when you go to world history, African history is kind of glossed over to the point where, like, northern African countries are not really considered in the eyes of that curriculum African. They're considered Middle Eastern. And it's like you learn briefly about the Zulu and things like that in Central Africa, but the majority of it is not really taught. It's kind of portrayed as if nothing was going on there until the Europeans discovered it and were like, hey, we can exploit this. And what ends up happening is because of that, I have this, like, I'm not deluded like a certain subset of the population into thinking that that is accurate. And certainly it is not portrayed that way intentionally. It is intentionally downplayed, but it is not portrayed in that. I mean, probably in some parts of the South it is, or in some particularly red areas it is. But this is a movie that, showcases what happens. Like, and as I'm watching the movie, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I'm like, the people who are living there are building these things, and it's like, well, why don't they have any lasting structures? And you look at what they're building, and it's like, it is architecturally beautiful what's being built in this movie. And it's like, but it's not built to last. Like, that's the key difference, is that those, vast cities and stuff that are built in this movie are designed beautifully, laid out beautifully, and feature, everything about it is beautiful. But it's all designed out of wood and types of rock that aren't built to stand the test of time as a monument to their continued existence. And it's like, if that's the thing to determine if a civilization is, the whole thing just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Not this movie specifically, more the way that this movie kind of shines a light directly on the directly on the socio-political issues that are plaguing America. Because go ahead, motherfucker, with your fucking motorcycle. When you watch a movie like this, and it's telling this, alright, an asshole in a U-Haul. I understand that you have the U-Haul and it's not yours, but you still have to drive like an asshole in it. When I watch when you watch a movie like this, there is that weird thing where it's like, well, how accurate is it? Because the Africans were involved in the slave trade too. Are they going to address that in this movie? And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, one of the most acclaimed movies in the history of American cinema completely whitewashes I keep saying whitewash, I don't know if that's the proper term, but it completely, sanitizes the role of the South in the Civil War. Because Gone with the Wind is still treated as an acclaimed movie, but it's rife with historical inaccuracies. And it's like, the issue is, there are so many, like this movie, it's not, and not even looking at that. This weekend, Blonde launches on Netflix. Blonde being the Ana de Armas Marilyn Monroe movie that's rated NC-17 for the amount of sex in it, because they took a real woman's life and made fan fiction about it, and it's borderline pornographic. And so what? So that is, like, that's allowed, we're allowed to have that historical inaccuracy, I guess because Ana de Armas is hot. But this is the problem. If they don't address that they're part of the slave trade, and the movie does do that, by the way. If anyone out there is on the fence about seeing this movie, unless they do acknowledge the fact that they were involved in the slave trade, do not worry. They do address that in this movie. If that, I guess can't wrap my head around it. And the other thing I have with this movie, and it's not, again, it's not the movie, it's what went into the movie before its release. I can see from watching this movie that when it was developed, when it was shot, and I would say up until close to release, when it was edited, the movie was designed to be a rated R movie. You can tell from the amount of blood, you can tell from the amount of the amount of violence in the movie. And then it was changed at some point to be rated PG-13. And you can tell from, the camera angles reflect this too, and everything about it designed to, we're not going to show anyone getting their throat slit, there's going to be someone over here, there's going to be someone over here. There's no point in the movie where it is shot in a way that indicates that it was always intended to be PG-13. And please, if I'm wrong, please correct me. If someone has on the record the director or the writer saying this movie was designed to be PG-13 from the beginning, or when we were making this movie, we kept in mind that it was going to be PG-13, please correct me, 30minutereviews@gmail.com. Please point me to that, because I did attempt to look for that when I got in the movie, but I could not find anything, and I didn't want to sit in the parking lot in the movie theater for too long, because I'm tired and it's been a very long day. So, looking at that, when you watch this movie, and what ends up happening, and this is probably the biggest detriment to the movie, I think, is what I feel like I can safely assume was studio interference leading to a cut of the movie that's not optimal. And what I mean by that is, because of how it's not even shot, because it's not the cinematography that's the problem, it's not the lighting that's the problem, it's not anything like that, or the way the motion is carried out on the screen, and the actors are very kinetic and all of that. It's not any of that. None of that's the problem. The problem is the edit. And I don't think the edit, being the way it is, comes from the direction or the cinematography. I think the edit being what the edit is, because the edit works everywhere else in the movie, and even during some action sequences that are not person-to-person combat heavy, all works very well. It's just the major extravagant fighting sequences where it gets a little muddled because there's so much going on, and they just have to adjust it to keep that PG-13 rating, where the camera needs to be shifted. You're not looking where the focal point of the action is going to be. There are multiple times where, your eye is trained to follow motion, and the focal point of a scene will be to follow motion through a finishing blow, either, down through, I'm making hand signals while I drive, and I'm sure the people in the lane next to me think I'm a lunatic, but the hand motion of someone stabbing someone downward is designed to grab your attention as that happens. You can't do that and then have that happen off screen, because then it's just weird looking. And that, again, I don't think that's the movie's fault as much as it's Sony or TriStar's fault when they're trying to release it and have it be released with a with mass marketability to the highest degree. I think that's kind of where the movie falters a little bit for me. But that said, everything else kind of works. And the action sequences that these minor problems are in are not exactly, they're great. There's nothing else wrong with the action in these movies besides the editing. That's the only issue that I have with this movie, is the editing in the action sequences. And if that was fixed, the movie would be a lot better. And I'm not saying the movie's bad. I'm just saying it could have been brought to a new height with the action feeling more organic especially considering it looks like it's all there already. It is a little long, and maybe it is just me getting into the groove of the hour and a half to 2 hour movie. That a 2 hour and 15-minute movie, I'm like, son of a bitch. Cut it at 2 hours. I don't need this. And toward the end of the movie, without spoiling it, there is a reveal about halfway through the movie about the relationship between two characters, and that is pretty well executed at that point. At the end of the movie, there's a moment where these two characters have a rejection moment, and then in the subsequent scene they come back together. I would have preferred those were spaced out a little bit better, but thinking back, I don't know how you space those scenes out, considering everything that happens between finding out their relationship and then everything that goes down, and then having those two scenes. You need to have that spurn to drive home the drama. Like, without that spurn, you don't get the emotional impact of that last scene, but also the emotional impact of the last scene could be more impactful if there's more time passed between the rejection and the resolution or the makeup. So it's a great movie, though. I think of the movies coming out this weekend, it's probably the strongest and most worth seeing in theaters. I'm going to be see how they run. I think the name of the movie is tomorrow with Saoirse Ronan, and I think it's Ed Norton. But that'll be tomorrow at like 1:40. I'm going to see it. I am very tired. Now it's starting to hit me, the tired. So what else have we got? I'm going to watch Harley Quinn tonight, so tomorrow morning we'll have that review up, the finale of Harley Quinn, and what Harley's new status quo is going to be going forward. I put up She-Hulk earlier today, so that's cool. What else? Yeah, I think that's really it. I had my first sign I'm getting older today, which was a nice little kick to the mortality, you know. Because like halfway through this movie, I had to go to the bathroom, which never happens. I sat through Avengers Endgame. I had my giant ass soda for that, and this one too. I went to the bathroom before I went into the movie, and then I still had to go halfway through, and then after the movie, I had to, like, it is getting to a point now where I'm like, you know, am I getting old? Is that what this is? It feels like it's too soon for this to be happening. So yeah. That's your TMI moment for this weekend. Let's see. I don't think we have anything else happening because the Giants are playing an early game, and yeah, I am very tired. I'm hungry too. It's been a day. It has been a day. So yeah, so tomorrow, see how they run. I think that's the name of the movie. You would think that between this morning and now I would have looked it up to be like, oh, that's the name of the movie that I've now promoted twice. And I think that starting this weekend, we are going to start, I'm going to announce a promotional campaign, not for any company other than us. And again, I apologize if for whatever ads are running before the show. I can't control what ads run. All I know is, what's it called? All I know is that, what's it called? Spreaker runs the ads beforehand. They handle all of that. If I upgrade, I can pick the ads and hand pick them, but that is cost inhibitive. I don't think it's worth it for me to spend money to pick the advertisers that I'm doing more specifically than just blocking out political. I think I have political advertising blocked. If you hear an ad before the show and you want to let me know what they're advertising, I'd be very curious to know. Again, 30minutereviews@gmail.com. Just go ahead and shoot us over an email. I'd be very curious to know what ads they think are relevant to this show. Because, I can see broad concepts for, what industries are advertising. And I've blocked out political. I think I blocked gambling, too. And I think I blocked explicit. So, I would assume no Adam and Eve on there. But, I'd be curious to see what is being advertised. But we'll wrap up there for today. So tomorrow morning we'll be back with Harley Quinn, and then tomorrow afternoon we'll be back with See How They Run. So until then, have a great rest of your evening.